As many of you know, I grew up in deep Appalachia. I now live in Atlanta, Georgia, and there are times where I'll tell my friends stories from what happened to me when I lived out there, and they're like, what? I already posted about my UFO story last year, and that video got to like 3 million views. But today, I'm going to tell you guys the story of when I was a kid and I encountered a skinwalker. Or at least what I thought was a skinwalker. I hate long intros, so I'm just going to get into the story. The place I lived was a place called Jasper, Georgia. It's right next to LJ, and I lived in the place where the show Squidbillies was based on, and we have a Squidbillies shrine in our town center. I had a friend that I would stay with pretty often, and her family owned a 300-acre farm, and when I say family, it's just her and her mom who live there. And so they have like all these farm animals, and they have different parts of their land that you have to walk through trails in the woods to get through. Like, in order to get to one barn, you have to walk through the woods for like 10 minutes just to get there. So there was one day that I was sleeping over there, and we had been home alone all day. I was probably in 3rd grade when this happened. Some of you might ask why me and my friend were just like 2 3rd graders alone on this farm. And it was because my parents were getting a divorce, and so I needed a place to go, so I pretty much lived with this girl at the time. But back to the story. So my friend's mom was on the way home, but I guess there was like a lot of traffic, or she was running late or something. So she called my friend and she asked her if we could like go down to one of the barns and feed the horses before we went to bed. So at this point in time, it was probably like 8 o'clock. The sun was going down. It was about to be nighttime. You could still see the sun and the light when you're in the open field, but in the woods, it was like pretty dark. Like there was no sunlight. So my friend and I started walking through the pasture to the woods, and she had a flashlight with her. We got to the woods, she turned the flashlight on, and we started walking. We were walking for maybe like 3 or 4 minutes through these woods, so we're about halfway through the trail, and we're just talking about some shit and laughing. And then all of a sudden, my friend just stops talking, and like I was kind of just like looking at her, like as we were speaking. I wasn't really looking in front of me. And then she just like drops the flashlight and starts sprinting in the opposite direction, like back to the house. And so I was like, "You okay, Rebecca?" And because that was her name. And I turn and I see her sprinting, and the flashlight was just like on the floor in front of me. And I was like, what the fuck? So I turned back in front of me, and I just see like maybe like 10 feet away this gigantic like white figure. And I didn't look at it for long, but just like the sheer height of this thing, whatever the fuck it was, scared me so badly that I looked at it and immediately was like fight or flight mode. Like I felt danger. So right when I looked at it, I turned the other way and fucking booked it. I was running faster than I'd ever ran before. So fast that I passed my friend, and I was like running and pissing my pants at the same time. Like that's how fucking scary it was. And so I ran all the way back to her house, and in my brain I was like, what is the one place I can hide right now where no one will find me? And the only thing I could think of was like I just ran to the laundry room and I got in the dryer. And so I was just sitting in the dryer, and it was like one of those old school dryers. It wasn't like plastic clear cover, so it was just like a white door that closes it from the front. And so I was just in there. I was like curled up in a ball, and I waited like, I don't know, what seemed like 15-20 minutes. I was just in there covered in piss. And eventually I thought that whatever the fuck was in the woods had like killed my friend, and so I was just crying and like I was freaking out. But I was also terrified and didn't want to die, so I was just sitting in there. And then eventually my friend walks through the door, and I can tell that she's crying and she's like hyperventilating. She's like like I hear that. And so I opened the dryer, and she's like scared when I open it, obviously. And I was just like also crying, and we hug each other, and I was like, where did you go? And so she told me that she had ran and she got into like this trailer that was kind of near the house because it was the only place she could think of to hide. And so we were both hiding, and I guess she just like mustered up the courage to run to the main house. And so we were both just like trying to explain what we saw and like put together whatever the fuck that was. And this was like 2008, maybe 2009. So I think I was like 12 or something when this happened, but this was way before like creepypasta or like any of these stories were like even around. So we couldn't even put a name to like what the fuck we saw out there. And so when her mom finally got home, we tried to explain what just happened, and she just like dismissed us, and she was like, you girls are just like overreacting. You guys saw a bear or like a deer or something, which is still terrifying if we saw a bear, but it definitely was not a bear because this thing was like pure white. And in the dark, it's like the only thing you can really see is like if there's someone standing in front of you with a white t-shirt, like you're gonna see that. But this thing was completely white, and that's all I remember is just like this gigantic, like 7 or 8 foot tall thing just like standing right in front of me, staring at me. And so I'm not friends with this girl anymore. I haven't talked to her in probably like 15 years. But I just remember that story, and I remember being so scared that I pissed myself. And the only thing I could think of that being is like a skinwalker. So maybe that is a skinwalker. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I've never told that on here, so I hope you guys were entertained and enjoyed it. And maybe got scared. But anyways, later this week I'm going to post another story about the Appalachian feral people, because I think I also had an experience with that when I was younger. There was a lot of weird shit that happened. But yeah, thank you guys.
Here's an Appalachian horror story for you. I gotta warn you, if you're going to be alone tonight or have to go walk outside in the dark for any reason, do not watch this one, because this one is a true story. It's just the supernatural element that's up for debate. And it's the story of Casey Hathaway, the 3-year-old boy who went missing from his North Carolina grandparents' home in the Appalachian Mountains. And what just dumbfounds people is how he survived. He was missing for 3 days, and he was in a pajama onesie. This is his picture of when they found him, okay? Now, if you notice, there's no mud on the bottom of his feet. Yet, right after he went missing, it rained heavily. In fact, so much that there was so much mud that the rescuers could not navigate the woods hardly at all. Now, this is where it gets a supernatural twist. After he was found, for 3 days being missing with a few minor scratches, but he was fed and he had been drinking because he was not dehydrated. After he was found, they said, "How did you survive?" And he goes to tell the tale of the fuzzy people that saved him. Not fuzzy like Harry. He says fuzzy like TV static. Okay? He said they kept him company. They talked to him though he couldn't understand them. They fed him. They watered him. Twig snapping. They fed him. They watered him. They gave him shelter. And he was found just a quarter mile away from his home after rescuers had essentially given up and assumed that he could only be dead, because while he was missing, it was below zero. During the day, when it was above freezing, it was raining. So when it was above freezing, it was raining. So then he would have gotten hypothermia after being soaking wet. And when they found him, he was barely wet at all. Like, it had shown no signs, essentially, that he had been in these elements for 3 days. They didn't think it was possible for a grown man to survive these conditions, let alone a child that was just wearing pajamas. No cold weather gear, no nothing. His family will not recount the story the same way. They say that he said it was a bear. And the first responders are like, no, he said it was a fuzzy person. Fuzzy people took care of him. And they're like, no, he says it's a bear. And to this day, the family recounts the story as he talks about there being a bear. So guess what? During this search, they had hunters, trappers, because they thought, maybe it was an animal. There's mountain lions in that area. There's bears in that area. No bear scat was ever found. No bear dens were ever found. And most importantly, remember how muddy it was? There was no bare footprints found. What's even stranger is Casey, the little boy, his footprints were not found either. He was just found tangled up in a thorn bush a quarter mile away from where he went missing. The rescuers and his personal family had searched that exact area literally hundreds of times. Like thousands of people were out here. They combed that area a million times. And he was so close to his home. How they found him is no one saw him. They could just hear him. He was like, hey, somebody come get me. And that's where he said the fuzzy people left him, was in this thorn bush. And you can see on that picture, if you go back, I'll put it up here again, you can see his little toe on the onesie is tore up, indicating that, yeah, he was stuck in that thorn bush. But why wasn't he muddy? If you look at photos of the rescuers, they were talking about, like, it was like knee-deep mud they're sloshing around in. They were like talking about it was the worst, sloshiest conditions ever. Yet this little boy that's been out here for 3 days, it looks like somebody's been carrying him the whole time. Kind of like how a big ape would carry their young. Kind of like how a Bigfoot would carry somebody. That's where the conspiracy theories go, is that this was a Bigfoot that abducted him or took care of him when he did wander away, because his grandma describes him as vanishing into thin air. She took her eyes off of him for 2 minutes, boom, he's gone. Now, we know how kids are, but the whole family immediately went searching for him. And even if he was in a full dead sprint, he shouldn't have been able to get that far, right? Now, a lot of people want to say Bigfoot photographs are always fake or they're always blurry. Well, if we listen to Casey Hathaway here, what if Bigfoot are just fuzzy? Like they're not blurry in the photos because somebody's a bad photographer. What if that's just the way they appear? Because if you look at Native American folklore, they talk about how Bigfoot is not a creature of our plane of existence. He can walk into our realm and out of our realm. So light wouldn't apply to him the same way if he's coming in and out, phasing in and out. And that would also explain why this little boy, he might have not even been in our plane of existence anymore. He might have been back to wherever Bigfoot land is, or what that area, the Appalachian area, call the Fae. If you want to look into the Fae story of this, the theory of this, Fae are often known for luring children. That is one of the big things they talk about with the Fae. They talk about people seeing that, like, they get their name called, or there's like this luring music, or they might even see another child in the woods motioning for them to come here, and it lures them. And the Fae have been described notoriously as being creatures of light, or being like fuzzy or blurry, because, you know, they're not quite of our realm, so you can't see them the way you would see like an actual regular physical object. Who knows? What we do know is that a little boy survived odds that no one should have been able to survive, with relatively no repercussions at all. And he himself talks about the fuzzy people, okay? And the doctors all agree somebody had to give him food and water. So then that goes back to a lot of people saying, oh, what if he was abducted? What if this or that? Where's the footprints? The rescuer's footprints could be seen everywhere. But somehow this boy, it was like he just pooped into the thorn bush. There is no tracks for him leading to the thorn bush. There's only the tracks leading away from the thorn bush after he was found and discovered. Almost like he was dropped from the sky or dropped from a tree. Once again, the way a great ape would drop you out of a tree. So the next time you're walking in the Appalachian woods, just remember, most likely you're not walking alone.
I don't know what y'all believe, but I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, and you learn from a very young age to just not ask questions. I was fresh out of high school. My grandmother was sick, and I decided to move in with her to take care of her. She had a 2-story house. Her bedroom was upstairs. My bedroom was downstairs. And I had a baby monitor in her room that I could hear if she needed something, because she was bedridden. And sometimes she would, holler for a Coke or whatever. This one particular night, and these things always only happen at nighttime in Appalachia, I hear the front door is basically in the middle of the house. Like, here's the house. Her bedroom's here. My bedroom's here. The front door would have been right here in the middle. I hear, and it's a very heavy wood door, I hear that front door close. I didn't hear it open, I heard it close. And it was a very distinct sound. And I was like, what the heck? Nobody should be here. That door was locked. And then I hear footsteps, like very heavy footsteps, like a big old guy in boots or something, walking very fast. Ugh, making me tear up thinking about it because it was so scary. Walking very fast down the hallway to my grandmother's room. So he walked in here and I could hear boom, 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 like fast, and then stop right beside her bed. And I literally have chills right now talking about this. And I was downstairs, so I'm hearing this in the house, I don't hear anything on the baby monitor, and I'm like looking up at the ceiling because I'm like, what is happening? And then the footsteps stop right beside her bed, which is directly over my head. And I'm looking, and I mean, I'm terrified because I don't have any way to protect myself, and somebody's beside my grandmother, and it's at nighttime. Well, my grandmother, who I thought was asleep, said, "I've been waiting for you." Oh my God. When that happened, y'all, this basement scared me when I was a kid. I would run out of that basement like when you turn the lights off because it was so scary to me. It's a big basement and pitch black. And that night, I mean, that was one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. There were other really scary things in that house that happened, but that night, and when folks are getting closer to passing on, I think that they have a sense that you don't have, like right now, most people, and the veil just gets a little thinner for them. And so I don't know who she saw or what she saw, but I heard it and she saw it, and she never spoke about it to me. And that's just one of the things that happened in Appalachia.
If you grew up anywhere near the Appalachians, then you probably have heard the rule where you do not answer any voices that you hear outside at night. This is After the Fire Stories, where I tell scary stories after the fire has gone out. So grab your favorite snack, your emotional support drink, and settle in, because tonight's story is about someone who broke that rule exactly once. I've gone back and forth on whether to send this because people online make Appalachian stories sound weirdly corny sometimes, and I swear that's not what this is. I grew up in eastern Kentucky, not way out off the grid or anything, but rural enough that you knew your neighbors and you knew the woods behind your house better than the roads in town. My mama used to say all kinds of stuff about the mountains at night, and most of it I took as old people rules. Don't whistle after dark. Don't follow a voice if you can't see who it belongs to. If something calls your name from the tree line and it sounds almost right, go inside and lock the door. I thought it was just mountain folklore. When I was 19, my cousin and I were driving back from a bonfire at maybe 1 in the morning. We weren't drunk. I want to be clear about that because that's always what people jump to first. We were tired though. It was one of those roads that cuts between old woods and a drop off on one side, no street lights, just your headlights and whatever your brain starts inventing in the dark. My cousin was driving. We had the windows cracked because this truck's AC sucked, and about halfway back, we both heard somebody yell my name from the woods on my side of the truck. Not scream, just call it like they knew me. It sounded enough like my brother that my first stupid thought was, why would he be out here? My cousin looked at me and said, was that Eli? And before I even answered, so I know I didn't imagine it, he heard the same thing. Then it said my name again, a little farther up the road this time, like whatever it was had moved without us hearing it move. My cousin rolled the window up immediately and said, don't say anything. That should have been enough. It should have. But I was 19 and trying to act tougher than I felt, so I said, just under my breath, who's there? The woods went dead silent. And I mean dead. No bugs, no tree frogs, nothing. You don't realize how loud the mountains are at night until all of it cuts out at once. My cousin stepped on the gas. I remember laughing a little because I was nervous, and right then from directly behind the truck, like right on the tailgate, something yelled my name again. Not my brother's voice this time. Same cadence, same rhythm, but lower, rougher, almost wet sounding. And my cousin started praying out loud, which he does not do. He is not that guy. We got to my house and both sat there for a second before getting out, and the porch light was on and I could see my mom asleep in her recliner through the living room window. Normal, safe, everything fine. I almost convinced myself right then that we just scared ourselves. Then my cousin grabbed my arm and pointed back at the truck. There were handprints all over the tailgate. Not muddy, not bloody, just darker than the paint, like somebody with cold hands had been slapping and dragging their palms all across it. They were too long, that's what I remember. The palms looked narrow and the fingers looked too long. And my mom said we probably brushed against wet branches. My cousin didn't even argue with her. He just left. And for the next week, I kept hearing somebody walking behind the house at night, slow and steady steps in the leaves. And my bedroom was on the back side facing the woods, and around 2 or 3 every morning, I'd wake up and hear something circle the house once, sometimes twice, never fast, like it was going slowly on purpose. It knew it had time. Then it started calling me, always from the woods, always just beyond where I could see with the porch light. Sometimes it sounded like my brother, once it sounded like my mom, once it sounded exactly like my cousin, which made no sense because he was at college by then. And it never said anything except my name at first. I made the mistake one night of looking out. I didn't go outside, but I pulled the curtain back because I was so angry and just tired and wanted it to just be some idiot messing with me. There was a shape standing at the edge of the tree line, too tall, but not in a dramatic monster way, just tall enough that it felt wrong against the trees. I couldn't see a face. I could see shoulders and arms and the suggestion of a head, probably, and I knew somehow it was looking right at me. Then, in my mother's voice, it said, "You already answered me." I moved out 2 months later. My mom still lives in that house and swears nothing like that ever happened to her, but she also nailed a little iron horseshoe over the back door after I left, and she had never done that before in her life. The part I've never gotten over is this. About a year later, my cousin finally admitted that when I first answered it from the truck, he heard something answer me back from his side too. It said, "Almost." Yeah, absolutely not. The second something in the woods starts using your voice, that's just, I'm done. So this has been After the Fire Stories. If you have any scary stories, then go ahead and send them in to me and I might read yours next.
Shout out to all of those TikTok videos that talk about if you're walking in the woods in Appalachia and you hear something or you see something, no you didn't, because I think that just saved my life last night. Story time. Excuse the garage. I'm at my parents' place, and this is the only place my dog is allowed, who plays a crucial role in this story, by the way. He's a very, very good boy, and last night proved it. So, my parents don't live in Appalachia, but they do live in an area that's a little more secluded. It's still a suburb, but it's pressed up against these hills with lots of untouched wilderness, and coyotes are running through there all the time. It's just a little bit more rural. So I'm sitting in their backyard, which has this tall fence all the way around it, and the wilderness comes right up to that fence. I'm sitting there around the campfire. My dog is laying beside me. I got my laptop open and I'm writing my little stories. Suddenly, my dog lifts his head, stares straight ahead at the fire, doesn't even look around at the yard, stares straight ahead at the fire and starts to growl. All dog owners know that your dog has different types of barks and growls. This was his warning growl. This is the growl he does when there is danger coming and he's telling it to back away. So immediately I'm like, buddy, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And then I hear a voice at the fence line. And it's not just any voice. It's the voice of a little girl. And it sounds like a creepy doll from a horror movie. It's got that kind of mechanical quality to it. And it's kind of muffled and garbled. I'm still getting the heebie-jeebies. And all it does is go, "Hello?" Just like that. Just like that. Hi, just same tone and everything. Now, mind you, it's midnight. There are not going to be any little girls wandering the woods at midnight. So immediately I was like, well, this is either someone who's gonna me, or it's something else. And what made me think it was something else was the fact that the voice said again, "Hello?" Only this time it had moved and it had gotten closer and I'd heard no footsteps. It was just floating closer. And then, mind you, my dog is still growling this entire time. For the next 5 minutes, that voice is just circling the fence line, going, "Hello? Hi? Hello? Hey?" Just like that creepy doll voice floating around the fence line. And then suddenly my dog stopped growling, and he put his head down and he went back to sleep, and the voice stopped. I thought, okay, cool. That was weird. And then all of a sudden he lifted his head back up again and started growling. And then the sound of a ticking clock came from the bush directly across from me. Again, heard no footsteps, heard no rustling. Just a ticking clock started in the middle of the night, in the middle of the woods. So don't know what that was. But if anyone wants to hop in the comments and let me know, that'd be great. Because I can't wait to go home today. And I don't see myself coming back here anytime soon. And a big shout out to my protector. Yes, big scary boy.
I live in the Appalachian Mountains and I broke one of the rules. Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. This one is going to give you chills. My name is Jake and I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains. I know all of the rules and I broke one of them a month ago. Ever since, I've been feeling watched. I'm 24 years old and about a month ago I was drinking while on call with my best friend who was also drinking. His mother recently passed of a heart attack and he was feeling down. It was about 1 a.m. and I had already locked all my doors and closed my blinds, but he was talking about maybe coming over. I wish I had said no, but I was drinking and not in the right state of mind. He hangs up and I wait. Around 15 minutes later, I hear a knock on my door. I'd forgotten to text him and confirm he was coming though. I go to open the door and I see nothing. I yell out his name. You there? Nothing but the wind howling. The forest was awfully quiet. I shut the door and go back inside. Minutes go by and I get a weird gut feeling. It was all a haze. Was it 30 or 15 minutes? I was drunk out of my mind. I'm surprised I even remember what happened. After what seems like forever, my phone chimes. Jasper had texted, "Yo, almost there. Be there in 10 minutes. I look at the text and feel my heart drop. What did I just do? I nearly had a panic attack. I heard Jasper's voice calling out from outside. It sounded like a faint call in the wind. I really don't know what it is, but I've been hearing whispers in the other room and footsteps and knocks. About my friend, I called him and told him to go back home and that we would remain on call for the rest of the night. I explained the whole situation to him. It's been a month and I still feel like I'm being watched.
I just dropped my daughter off at school and I overheard another parent talking to another parent about how they and their family are going to be going camping in the Appalachian Mountains very soon, like when summer begins. And I just, as somebody who knows a lot about the Appalachian Mountains because I grew up around them, I'm still very close to the White Mountains, but further away now. So I piped in real quick and I was just like, I hope you guys have a really good time. Please be safe. Those mountains are crazy and you never know what's lingering inside of them. And the woman goes, okay, well don't worry. We've been there a couple times before, not to ever camp or anything, but to actually just walk a portion of the trail. And I'm thinking, okay, well, camping is a little bit different, but I hope you guys have fun anyway. But then on my way back to the car just now, I couldn't help but think that people romanticize Appalachia way too much. And then when you actually get to Appalachia, you realize it's not romantic. It's actually quite scary. There are also stories from those mountains that people don't really openly talk about. I don't know, maybe the fact that there's people living in caves out there as feral human beings. So in the Appalachian Mountains, there are tons of different cave systems. Actually, some of the largest cave systems on Earth are actually located there. And I don't think you understand how many caves there are. There are still some caves out there that are not even mapped yet by people. And for generations, people of the area have warned their family members, their children, to just stay away from certain areas because they know that they're more dangerous than others. They would tell their kids and their family members and whoever else they wanted to tell to stay away from those places because of the people who lived there. I know it could just be written off as some oh, that's just a tall tale that, your mom's gonna tell you so that you don't run away. But there really were people that disappeared into those mountains. In fact, there's literally moonshiners out there hiding from the law. Could be families fleeing from civilization, runaways, violent fugitives, violent criminals. And then you have those who are born in complete isolation in the mountains themselves. I mean, imagine a forest of that vast of a size, it is very easy to get lost into. You can vanish completely. I was reading this forum online and this guy, he posted on Reddit that he was backpacking in the deeper backcountry parts of the Appalachian Mountains. He said that he had been hiking for hours and hours and hours and everything was fine, and suddenly he just realized that everything went completely silent. And if you know anything, you know that that is not a good sign, especially when you're out in the forest by yourself. Then he noticed smoke. At first he assumed that it was just another group of hikers nearby or whatever, but the smoke wasn't like a big plume of smoke like a campfire smoke would be. It was more of like a steady stream of smoke up like further out towards the mountain. When he followed it, he found something that he was not expecting. So instead of finding the tents of another hiker, he found like little structures that were built between like trees and rock, like actual makeshift shelters made out of like whatever they could find around the area. Tarps, rusted cans, animal bones hanging from branches. According to him on his post, he said that the moment he stepped closer, he realized that people were watching him. Like several different people were standing off in the tree line watching him. Described them as having an almost feral-like appearance. They were very emaciated, very skinny, very like disheveled looking. Just feral. They looked like feral people. I feel like that just has a very distinct look, feral people, right? He said none of them spoke a single word. They just stared at him. So the Reddit user does what any sane person would do, and he gets the fuck out of there. But also, according to him, he could hear footsteps following behind him as he was leaving, like as if somebody was following him back down the trail to make sure that he got out of wherever they were setting up their little civilization. Now, whether the story is true or not, it is hard to pass by because there are so many others that are like it. Like there are dozens of stories like this from the Appalachian Mountains of people seeing real feral people. There's this old Appalachian attitude that's like, if it's in the woods, leave it alone. Honestly, that mentality probably exists for a reason. Like, you know, things passed down from ancestor to ancestor. Fears passed down from one bloodline to the next. Because we also got to remember, Appalachia is older than freaking bones, dude. It's been around since before Saturn's rings, and it's probably one of the oldest mountain ranges on this freaking planet. There's so much lore behind it, and I love talking about it. But yeah, anyways, be safe out there if you're going on the Appalachian Trail, because you never know if you're going to walk into a skinwalker or a feral human being.
Let's read some scary and true stories from the Appalachian Mountains. If you're new here, I'm Krista, and I just made this account where we talk about weird events, paranormal story times, and everything in between. So if you're interested in that genre of content, be sure to stick around. The first one is called I Live in the Heart of Appalachia, and this is easily the most terrifying story of one of my experiences. This story may be short, or it may be drawn out. I am recounting these events as I type, and it was honestly one of the most horrifying things I've ever experienced, and it brings me genuine stress to think about. This happened maybe 2 to 3 years ago. I live in southern West Virginia, and I have for my entire life. The woods and mountains surround every direction you look, and nighttime is a darkness that you can never dream of unless experienced. I was with a friend, I'll call him Mark. Mark was at my house one evening doing the usual things, watching UFC, playing Xbox, etc. It was extremely late when we finally got bored and decided to go for a walk on a nearby trail and smoke a joint. This is not a particularly long trail, but it is very dense in the woods that surround it, and it is easy to get freaked out when thinking of your surroundings. We finally get to about halfway into the trail, about 30 minutes in, where we stop, pack our joint, and stand on the trail to chill and talk. The forest is very alive tonight. There are always noises in the woods, but the amount of animal activity for the time was unsettling. At this point, it was probably past 1 a.m. This was strange and kind of eerie, but not alerting, as any sort of predatory animal in the area may cause a disturbance. We finish smoking and continue our walk when almost immediately the forest falls dead quiet. And as soon as the forest goes quiet, there's a voice. It almost sounds like a mocking humanoid voice, shaky and uncertain. Almost like an old children's toy, like the ones with the crackly speakers and robotic voice, if you know what I mean. This immediately sets us off. We bolt directly down the opposite length of the trail, but the sound does not gain distance. It doesn't get closer per se, but no matter how far we ran down the trail, this eerie voice remains the same volume, going over and over with no quieting or stopping. At this point, I'm convinced that we were in genuine danger, something I have felt very few times. Finally, after sprinting for who knows how long, we exit the trail, grasping for breath and almost at the verge of tears at how frightening this was. We begin to exit the trail, and about 5 minutes from the exit, there is a bone-shaking, heart-stopping, murderous scream from directly behind us. I know what a mountain lion sounds like. This was not an animal. This was not someone playing or watching a movie. This scream sent birds flying from nests and made my heart drop into my stomach. It was genuinely the most depraved and violent scream that I have ever heard. This is a true story that I've only told to maybe 3 people, all of whom seem to brush it off as false. I've never been a person to push for the existence of the paranormal or spiritual, but I genuinely believe I encountered something inhuman in those woods. Edit. I know I will receive questions such as what the voice was possibly saying or to explain the area and what happened after. I genuinely cannot remember what the voice was saying, if anything intelligible. I don't know if I could understand it then, and I certainly can't recall understanding it after several years of blocking it out of my memory. All that I recall is that it was a fluctuating voice and pitch, shaking, almost like joining sounds together. After running from the scream at the end of the trail, we ran to the car, which was only about 5 more minutes from the trail, so we got there relatively fast from sprinting. And then someone commented on this story with their own account that's pretty similar. Oh wow, I feel this in my bones. My uncle, mom's brother, has had a farm in southeast West Virginia since the 70s, long before I came into this world. Mom is the oldest of 5, and my uncle built a bunch of houses on the farm so family could use it whenever. Some lived there, and other, like my family, visited often. My mom and older sister and I would go for weeks on end to spend time with family, and I always loved it because I have a ton of cousins and was the baby for a long time, so mostly I tagged along with my cousins and felt extremely safe, like it was my happy place. I don't really remember anything totally out of the ordinary when I was really little, other than I remember an imaginary friend whom I exclusively played with at the farm, nowhere else, and we moved extensively for Dad's job, so I've lived in many different places. What I remember after age 5 was suddenly being old enough to not have to have someone walk me to and from other houses, which I thought was so cool. So I used to explore. My uncle liked to bow hunt and had taken me a few times, not too far into the woods, so I was able to go back down on my own and find their little tree platforms they had built to hunt from. I thought they were little cool tree houses. Your story sounds a lot like the very last time I ever took off by myself into the woods without another family member with me. It was the winter. I wanted to be out in the snow and explore. So I found my way up the mountain. This is what I called it, but in fact it was probably just a massive hill, and into the trees. I couldn't find the spot I was looking for and got pretty frustrated with my 8-year-old self. So I sat down by a creek to catch my breath and figure out where I was. I couldn't have been sitting more than about 3 minutes when something let out a scream I could only describe as blood-curdling. I thought it was a fox most likely until I heard another voice crying, just weeping and wailing, and the sorrow was palpable. My cousins had always told scary stories about Appalachia, so I figured they had followed me into the woods and were trying to scare the pants off me for shits and giggles. I called out like, okay guys, this is not funny. Okay, I'm going home. Enough. And followed my footprints in the snow as fast as I could back to the farm. The screaming and crying didn't stop, stayed consistent as I moved, which really made me convinced it had to be my cousins. I don't think I heard words, just crying and screaming, but it wasn't pleasant. Made my way back to the main house and absolutely booked it, ran full tilt to get to the kitchen door. I remember getting through the door and slamming it behind me because I was a combo of terrified and annoyed that my cousins were pulling a prank on me. Well, wouldn't you know, every family member was accounted for in the living room/kitchen. The older male cousins and my uncles were in the kitchen putting their snow boots and coats on to come look for me. I had apparently been gone for several hours and they were worried. According to my mom, I was white-faced. My hands were covered in scratches through my mittens. I guess I must have fallen or something. They were so worried I had disappeared. I should add, I set off from my aunt's to walk to my uncle's and had decided to take a detour and didn't tell anyone. I was 8 and really didn't think about how that might be bad. Mom said I looked like I had seen a ghost. I asked if anyone had come out to the woods to look for me, and they said, no, we've been looking at the different houses, and we were just about to come look for you because they had saw my footprints head into the woods. I told them about where I went and what I heard, and my uncle, whose property it was, said, oh shit, I think you probably ran into the witch. I'm over here thinking, oh, some crazy lady lives in the woods and I probably stumbled near her cottage. Nope. The witch was what they call the unknown entity that roamed the woods, screaming, crying, and mimicking people's voices, and just giving people a good old sense of doom and dread. No one had a straight answer about possible folklore or anything like that, but all my older cousins had their own experiences with similar happenings over the years. It scared the living daylights out of me, and while I've been back to the farm over the years, I can tell you I have never once set foot near the woods tree line, even as an adult. I was grateful my family didn't think I was crazy, but they said a general rule is not to be in the woods alone, so I listened. To my knowledge, nothing physical ever happened with anyone in this entity, more of a prankster than anything. But oof, the Appalachia has some wild stuff. I definitely remember some strange stuff happening during the week we had my aunt's funeral when I was 21, and random voices or red eyes or smoke apparitions on the wood's edge, but I never went to check them out after that one incident. I read through the comments because I feel like this is a pretty shared experience when it comes to spooky Appalachian stories, and somebody said that this seems like a straightforward Sasquatch encounter, which is interesting. The forest going quiet is kind of a telltale sign because Sasquatch are omnivores and every creature knows that they're on the hunt. And then they said the voice that you heard sounds similar to what has been described as samurai chatter in the Sierra sounds, so let's take a listen to that. Hell no. Hell no. I'm sorry. Imagine being in the woods in the dark and you're 8 and you're by yourself and you just hear that. Wrap it up. Absolutely not. Wrap it up. Anyways, stick around for part 2 because I'll probably do another video talking about the Appalachian Mountains.
I grew up around the Appalachian Mountains, and I don't know why I never thought to talk about these stories before now, but I'm gonna share them with you because they're fucking terrifying. Back in 2015, I moved into this house with my mom, my dad, my siblings, whatever, and when we first got there, it was like, you know, cute house, but I've always been very sensitive to, like, paranormal shit, so off the bat, I was like, I'm sensing something, like Will and Stranger Things. I'm like, my neck hair is raising. I loved being alone as a kid, so I would go downstairs. It was a huge basement, nice floor, whatever. I'd be going down there doing gymnastics and stuff. And one day, I was like, let me, record myself to see my form. Let me see if I can improve. I took a picture, and when I looked at the picture, there was this giant green dot next to me. And I'm like, ooh, maybe that's just like light flare, what the fuck. If I look at it more, there's a man's face when I zoomed into it. I was like, ooh, I need to go show my mother. So I went and showed her, and she was like kind of paranoid. She was like, maybe because it's a green light, it could just be one of our past loved ones just protecting us. Like, me and her are very spiritual people, so we weren't too scared of it, just more like, that's a very clear fucking face. Like, that's a little freaky. Time goes on, we start getting stuff moved in down there, and I'm getting chills talking about it. Every person that stayed down there was constantly seeing and hearing shit. At one point, my sister and her kids were living with us, and my niece comes to me one day, and she's like, Auntie, like, I keep hearing people calling my name down there. Like, what do you mean? And she's like, I hear people calling my name, I can hear them talking to me, I hear whispers down there, and no one else is hearing it. Mind you, she was like 5 or 6 at the time, so I'm just like, I know you're not lying. There's one time my mom had this picture of Joseph and Mary above this glass table on the wall. And the material of the painting, picture, it was very easy to shatter if you had dropped it. So she wakes up and it's laying in the middle of the floor. Now, mind you, her room was down in the basement, so if this thing had fallen, she would have heard it and woken up immediately. It was just laying in the middle of the floor, and she's like, okay, that's kind of really fucking weird. Like, what the fuck? So she puts it back up, and she goes to lay back down. This time, it flew off the fucking wall. And so we were just like, oh, fuck no. She just didn't put it back up. She moved the table like, Another time, I would hear voices coming from the vents leading to downstairs. I shit you not. I would get so scared just when it was too quiet because I'm like, I could hear voices coming from the basement, and I sounded crazy saying that. There's one night, I'm getting really, really, really fucking scared. Like, I keep hearing shit, I keep feeling shit. Like, it started to get very tense. Like, it's not that it felt malicious, but it was starting to be very active and very present. So I asked her, can I come lay with her because I'm really fucking scared, I can't sleep. So she was like, yeah, lay down, whatever. So I'm laying there for a few minutes, and we would keep our pets in the basement, not like locked up, but like my cat, we would put her downstairs sometimes when we went to bed or when we left the house, just so that she wouldn't be up and scratching on the furniture or whatever. And so we kept her food bowls at the top of the steps so that we could just easily refill them. We hear one of the bowls fall all the way down the steps, and we're just like, okay, the cat's fucking messing with them. So then we heard the other bowl, we heard that one like be more forcefully thrown, and you could hear it hitting each individual step, and like you could hear it, like the bowl hit, and you like the sound when you drop a bowl, and it's like wah, 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 like that fucking sound. We wake up the next morning, the bowls are at the top of the steps. Nothing fell. They didn't move, but we know what the fuck we heard. Then there was one time I'm sitting in the kitchen, so I'm sitting there, enjoying myself, and I start getting like this really heavy feeling, and I was like, shit, maybe I smoked too much, like maybe I'm freaking myself out. And I'm looking out the window. Behind our house is nothing but trees and woods. It's fucking like 1 a.m. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, looking out in the fucking woods, high as shit, right? In the reflection of the window, I see something standing behind me. Bitch, I turn around and I see like this 7-foot dark shadow dart down the steps. So I'm fucking terrified. And I just went to my room. I fucking cried. Mind you, I think I was like 17, 18, 19. I think I was like 18 when this happened. Started crying. I was so fucking scared. So it took me a few days and I finally talked about it. And when I'm talking about this, my other sister, she's looking at me and she's like, don't fuck around right now. Like, are you being serious? And I was like, yes, why? She was like, because the other day I was standing in the kitchen and I saw exactly what you're talking about run in the opposite direction, ran to like the kids' room. And so we're all just sitting there like, oh my God. Last one for now. Me and my girl were standing in the laundry room, and I was doing my laundry, and one of my pockets had chapstick in it, so I was like, shit, take this out, put it on the shelf, threw my pants in the washer. Now, me and her just sitting here talking, we're not paying attention to that fuck-ass chapstick. So it falls, and we're just like, okay, whatever, like, it probably just rolled off, like, I probably just set it down too fast, didn't pay attention. I set it back up there. This shit flew across the goddamn room. Like, in between, it flew. We ran up out that basement so fast. I have so many stories from so many fucking places, from my house, my friends' houses, jobs. If you want to know, please comment, and I will continue this. Because, again, I don't know why the fuck I've never talked about this before. Like, I didn't think that anyone would care. But now I'm just like, I think that would be really interesting to talk about, so. Part 2 of my spooky Appalachian stories. My hair is not done yet, but I'm kind of rocking with how it looks right now. What do we think? So, there was one night my mom was sleeping, and I'm just up doing whatever, drawing on my phone. I couldn't sleep. I was having a really rough time sleeping. And I've always had trouble sleeping, but once we got to this house, my sleeping was just so fucking weird. I'm sitting there, and I hear, like, whispering. And I'm like, okay, my mom's probably sleep talking. Like, the way that our rooms was, it was, like, my room, and then, like, not even 10 feet, it was her bedroom door. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe she's just, you know, talking in her sleep, because she did that sometimes. Except I heard someone responding back to her. I just got chills thinking about this. Oh my God. Someone was responding back to her, and it was a man. There was nobody else in our house at this time, because my dad wasn't there that night. I don't know where he was, what was going on. I think he was either with his friends, with family, I don't know. But it was just me and my mom. There was no one else there. So there's a man speaking in her room, speaking back to her. And I listen. She's talking in a different language. I couldn't quite make out what it was. Maybe Latin. That's what it kind of sounded like to me, honestly, because I speak a little bit of Latin. But I was like, you're having a conversation with someone that's not there, and you're speaking in a different language. This does not feel right. So I told her the next morning, and she's just like, you're joking around. You were just maybe dreaming. I was like, Mom, I was wide awake. You were speaking to a man in a different language. No one was in there. We never figured out what the fuck that was, and we choose not to talk about it. Rightfully so. Another time, it was me, my boyfriend at the time, my niece, and my nephew. We had all had like a big sleepover in my room, so it was my bed, and then I had a mattress on the floor where my niece and my nephew slept. And so, you know, it's the next morning, we're all sitting there, and my nephew's jumping around having fun, and I'm recording him. And he randomly falls, and he's like looking around like freaking out. We're just like, you just fell, buddy, you're okay. Tell me why when I watch the video back and put it in slow motion, you can see a hand shove him. And when you watch the video in slow motion, you can see the handprint on his shirt. His body be pushed like that, and you can see him looking around like, what the fuck was that? And then we asked him about it. He wouldn't say anything. Like, he's a very talkative kid. He would not say anything. He would not answer any questions. He would just go about his day. He would not answer what the fuck he saw or what happened to him. Part 3 of my Appalachian scary story. This one doesn't revolve around spirits. It revolves around portals, because they're very much active. This first one, it wasn't me, it was my best friend. She calls me one day. Mind you, this is the same girl that was in the laundry room with me when that chapstick flew across the room. So me and her, we just are so aware of shit that be happening. She tells me, you know, my man just came over, and when he walked in, he had his glasses on. I saw his face, he had his glasses on. He took his glasses off and set them down in my windowsill, because to drive over here, he just needed his glasses, but he doesn't need to wear them all the time, whatever. So he sets them down, and, you know, they're hanging out, whatever, a few hours goes by, and he's like, all right, you know, I really gotta get home, it's getting late. So they try to find his glasses, and they're nowhere to be seen. So they're like, okay, that's really fucking weird. Like, we saw you put them down in the specific spot. Neither one of us moved them. They're not there. So he's like, you know, whatever. I'm sure I can make it home. Just, you know, let me know if you find them. He gets home, walks into his room. His glasses are sitting on his bed. And when she told me this, I was like, are you sure? Like, are you sure that he actually came in with his glasses on? Like, are you? And she was like, girl, I saw his face, like, he had his glasses on when he walked through my bedroom door. I know what I saw. So I'm like, what the fuck? This part isn't about portals, but it is about her house. There was one time I was on my phone, and I was just, like, looking through stuff, deleting old stuff I didn't need, clearing up some storage, and I come across this voice file, and I was like, that's pretty peculiar. I don't have an audio recording app on my phone. And the file that this was from didn't exist on my phone. Like, there was no app that could do this. And so I listened to it. It is a man's raspy voice saying, help me, bitch. I started crying, and I was like, Mom, listen to this, listen. So she listens, she's like, shut the fuck up, play it again. Like, we kept listening to it, and it was like, you could hear, like, the phone rustling, like, as if someone picked up my phone to say, help me. I'm literally getting chills talking about it. I looked at the date, I was like, when did this happen? It was recorded at her house in the middle of the night while we were sleeping. No one was there. What do you mean? Back to the portal situation. There was another time, me and my mom sitting there, and she's trying to get the kids ready. We're about to go have a fun day. So she's trying to get my nephew's socks on. She sets the socks down literally to her left. Sets them down. She puts his pants on. She turns to the left to get the socks. So she's like, give me the socks, girl. I was like, I don't have them. She was like, stop playing. Like, we're in a rush. I need you to give me the socks. I was like, I don't have them. And she's like, then why are they next to you? I look to my right. They're sitting right next to me, across the room. When she had just set them down right next to her leg, turned over, turned back, they were gone, and they were right next to me. I didn't see anything. She didn't throw them to me, nothing. How the fuck did they get across the room when neither one of...